And so she asks the question in this next section: how can we prepare young people for the postmodernist theories they will encounter in the university, in the classroom, and that sort of thing?
Yeah,
Right?
and I would say at the point of this book being read, that's I think where they were predominantly located. But now,
Yeah.
I mean, now it's
Pervasive throughout all society.
it's in the culture. It's in the
Yeah.
culture, there's a quote from someone that says, "Politics is downstream from culture." So it becomes cultural, then it becomes political, then it becomes normal, and then you have to. It's either pervasive in all three: the universities, the culture, and then the political, or there's a revolution that happens because of it. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
it seems I don't know. Once you have there are no men and women that there's no thing as truth. I don't know how you rebel against that other than to go back and start all over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
I have no idea
There
what
is truth. There are, man. There are.
Yeah.
So again, you're caught in that circle. And then once you start that, then you have to rebel against that.
Right.
And there you go, right? She says, like every worldview, postmodernism offers genuine insights, especially in the critique of modernism. Enlightenment held an exalted view of the autonomous individual in possession of disembodied reason, right? Which supposedly lifted him above his tiny slot in time and space to live our timeless, objective truth based on reason. By contrast, postmodernism insists that knowledge is always contextual. Persons are not disembodied consciousness. They are physical beings situated within communities, and their worldviews are colored by cultural conditions, economic interests, and power relations. She says, yet in reacting against the Enlightenment, postmodernism falls off the horse on the other side. Right? It reduces the individual to a patchwork of historical and social forces with no stable personal identity. And the reason goes back to Hegel's historicism, which he talked about earlier, the implication that there's no such thing as human nature, so no stable, ideal blueprint for what it means to be human, no universal standard to tell us who we are and how to fulfill our true nature. And so, right, we've lost ourself, our individualization, right? As the existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre puts it, there's no human nature, but because there is no God to have a concept. Right? Essence precedes existence, is what he said. Existence precedes essence, is what he claimed. Since God is dead, we don't have any essence. We don't have any purpose. We just find ourselves in existence. And so now we have to create our own essence, our own purpose. And so he said, existence precedes essence. Yeah. And so as a result, now everything I do is creating humanity, right? Everything I do, because I'm adding to the essence of humanity. And so we find ourselves in despair and forlornment and all that kind of thing. So that was kind of Sartre, what he was getting at here. He says, just as species are constantly changing and evolving, so individuals must leave behind all stable standards and immerse themselves in the ceaseless flux of life, constantly creating and recreating themselves. She says, to use postmodern terms, the self is fluid and fragmented. Michel Foucault says his goal is the disassociation of the self by showing that our sense of being a coherent self is in reality an empty synthesis of past events. So what exactly does this mean? Well, one philosopher explained that for Foucault, our identities are fictionally anyway. Each of us is plural, right? And so we have all these various forces pulling us in many directions. But notice, if our identities are fictional, then who is Foucault? And who is really speaking in his writing, right? When a postmodernist states that it's impossible to attain objectivity, is that an objective statement? The theory itself undercuts its claims, right? It commits suicide.
Yeah,
right?
There are no individuals in postmodernism, but I, as an individual, am saying that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm
no universal truth in postmodernism.
Yeah, or again, it's
that is a universal truth.
It's claim. That Borg type thinking, but there's no actuality based on that because, yes, the Borg is one thing, but you still have we are not the Borg. Uh, we haven't been assimilated into that, and we have these competing um, communities that we're a part of, and so you would think that uh, you know, and it's not just race, sex, class, sexual orientation. I mean, it could be I play Dungeons and Dragons and you don't, and that's a class apart.
So like the Dungeons and Dragons group, right?
Yeah,
Or a collective or
PC and
society.
Apple. I mean, all these things are social constructs, just like race, class, sex, and everything else, right? Well, okay, why not drill down into when you're the only class person of all those things? It's not just yes, we're both males, but we're both of different age groups, and so does that put us in the same one or different ones? Well, I think
So your idea of social construction is socially constructed.
yeah, right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So why should it matter over anybody else's idea?
Right.
Right.
Right. But then to say the opposite, that we're only individuals, I'm talking to you, and therefore we're part of a community. We have a common language. We're wanting to communicate with each other. I don't communicate with the ant. I don't have the ability to. I wouldn't want to because they're ants. Gross. And so we're not part of a social class. You wouldn't say the ant and the human are social beings. Some might, but those are weird biologists. And so I like the narrative of falling off the other side of the horse. It's the parts are on the side. The whole is staying on the saddle. And so yes, communities, and yes, individuals, but not only communities, and not only classes or communities.
Yeah. So they're getting rid of themselves, right? She says, moreover, this runs contrary to human experience. Each of us experiences the inescapable, irresistible sense of being a coherent self, an active center of consciousness, not merely a passive locus of, colliding social forces. Even as we undergo life changes, right? Growing older and that sort of thing. We're aware of an enduring core personality. The universality of this first person awareness, even among those whose worldview denies it, is a clue that it is intrinsic to human experience. We are so constructed that we cannot live consistently on the basis of the postmodernist radical reductionism. And neither can they. The truth of general revelation, she says, cannot be ultimately suppressed. Again, they run into the wall.
Right.
Right?